Welcome to another episode of the Casually Serious podcast with Fazil and Abhinav. Today we have with us a very busy person, a very busy person, and at least to my opinion, a textbook example of somebody who followed the calendar to the T because I kept I kept persistently, asking him if he was free enough to if he was able to make time for our podcast, and I think here we are making it happen this time. We have with us Sumer Rai, an ex-entrepreneur right now, and as in who is back to the corporate life, who is back to, more importantly, I think we are here to discuss how entrepreneurship is post undergraduation. How does it work? Over to you. Okay.
Looking back, I had a lot of fun, and the personal growth was immense. Yeah, there were days where I was questioning, is this all worth it? What am I doing over here? But looking back, I think everybody has to go through that once at least in their life, right? If you're not uncomfortable, I feel you're doing something wrong.
Correct.
And that's what I kept telling myself, that okay, whatever happens, I'm going to come out of this better than I was 2 years back. And I see so many of these kids saying, मैं cat के लिए एक साल gap ले लेता, and that's justified. Nobody bats an eye for taking it.
Just a reference, for so those of us listening to this podcast, CAT is a management exam for taking admission to MBA colleges. So yeah, I think you go over it. Yeah, you were saying. Yeah.
So in my third year, I saw all of these kids saying, I'll take a off gap year for CAT, and nobody bats an eye at that. That's considered completely normal, and at times you're actually encouraged to do that. Why? Because you can get an IIM degree if you crack the CLAT. But when I told my friends, I'm going to dump my job, not dump, I would say leave my job, not start my job, to start my own company, there are always going to be a few eyebrows raised.
Correct.
But if you actually look at the logic behind it, there is a 5% chance of your company making it through the first year. I think so, around that, or maybe 70% companies fail in the first year, 5% are successful overall, whatever. From my research, there's a 5% chance you're going to make it big. There is a 0.99% chance of you making it to the IIMs. So mathematically, if you look at it, you have a better aspect of being successful in your business. Now, let's talk about the reward. Okay, yes, an IIM degree is great. You have a lot of network, but the immediate reward is going to be a salary of 2 to 3 lakhs a month, right? A business, it could be anything. You could even earn north of a crore. So the rewards aspect, the business is better. Now let's look at the loss aspect. The loss aspect is that in a CAT, you have not cracked a school of your dreams, and you have to go back to corporate.
Right.
Realistic outcome in a startup is that your startup has not taken off and you have to go back to corporate. Both very realistic outcomes can happen. But what happens is that I feel if you have spent a year studying CAT, you don't have many transferable skills. Yes, you're thinking clearer, you have a better command of your language. But if you go and set up your own startup and you do that diligently, you actually put in your weight behind it, you actually get up every morning, work those 10, 12 hours every day, you have learned not only self-motivation, but skills like compliance, skills like digital marketing, skills like web development, skills like product management, skills like biz dev. Which company won't want you after that?
Correct.
So you are actually spending that year transforming yourself, getting skills. That is the low side of it. That's the low side of it.
Agreed.
And the high side of going for a startup is that you're going to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
What's difficult?
I think, with regard to the journey, we have a lot of time to discuss with regard to your journey, especially. We have a couple of exciting questions lined up for you. But then, before we begin, I think we feel responsible to always mention why we invite the guest. It's very important to the both of us because one thing I think when I began with introducing that, you're an ex-entrepreneur, which there's a arsenal of skills that you've gained which we possibly want to benefit from, right? So both of us. And also because you mentioned something on the lines of return on karma before on our calls in the couple of conversations that we both had. You mentioned return on karma, and I think I want to highlight a bit about that as well because it was so nice to listen to. And the third thing was because just outside graduation, you're doing something which is extremely hard. I think that requires a little more of appreciation and a little more of thought. There's a method to that madness. Why you came to that, right? So we wanted to explore on those sides.
Right.
But before all of this, a little bit of a bit of an introduction from your side. Where do you attend college and stuff like that? Yeah. What's your firm about? How did you guys operate and all? Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So I went to Christ University for my undergraduation. I did a bachelor's in business administration from Christ University. I graduated in 2019. So I felt that Christ that time was probably one of the best BBA schools. I think we were ranked one. Now we must be ranked 2 or 3. But that time we had a lot of smart people coming into Christ.
Mhm.
And the ethos was really, really nice. It was competitive, a lot of smart people over there. But I felt that when I looked at third year, right, I felt that the decisions they were taking in terms of what jobs to take up or careers to go for not really matched to what the interests were. So somebody's marketing is going for something in banking, somebody in banking is going for something in HR. It was sort of like jo haal lag gaya wo le lete hain. Whatever we get, we'll take. More than a systematic thought process of okay, what do I want? What are the companies that I actually want to go for? So I felt that a major reason why people are doing this is because there is a lack of career education in the country, where people don't know about different industries, people don't know what are different job titles, let alone how to get these jobs.
Like
So-
the after effects, like the after effects of doing the degree. What streams can you get into, right? That's what you're saying, right?
Precisely, or just what industries are there? What are the different industries out there? What are the upcoming industries? It doesn't have to be like a stream or in terms of just narrowing it down, right? That okay, I'm interested in startups. Okay, I'm interested in banking. Oh no, I'm interested in foreign banking. So I feel that that exposure to industries has not come into place.
Right.
And people didn't even know like what are the jobs in marketing, or what are the jobs in HR, or what are the jobs in operations. So I felt that the industry relevance was not there in terms of career education. People didn't know much about it. So I wanted to target that problem. And I felt that edtech was booming. So a good way to go is that target the schools, because you have parents now who are willing to pay for something like this. That was the assumption I went forward with. And we went ahead and built something known as the experiential learning career counseling model. What was the idea? The idea was through short video case studies, you get to understand what exactly goes down in the industry. What are the kind of jobs you'll have to do? What are the kind of skill sets you'll have to attain? So there were short video case studies. How did we make these video case studies? We went to different mentors, spoke to them, curated their insights, and got them back, made content based on their insights. So that was the idea we wanted to go forward. We clubbed that with career counseling and admissions counseling as well. And we had a ecosystem built where you can explore different career options, you can get mentorship, and will also help you attain what your immediate goal is. So for example, in 10th grade, you want to go to the 11th grade. In 12th grade, you focused on college. So that was the idea behind Compass.
Okay. Okay. So your company's name is Compass.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So like that is like that was an impressive idea. One question is, how did you I think college aspect was one thing where you mentioned, yes, college was one of the inspiration, the placement process was one of the inspiration with respect to getting through this idea. But then I think diving a little more about how you guys operated, right? I think you started solo, and then how did you a bit about that as well, if you could share.
Okay, so let's break the question down. By operated, you mean our career counseling aspect, our business development aspect, or just the different departments we had?
I think he means like the behind the scenes, how it all began, how the team began, where was the first footing step, where was the foundation laid. Yeah.
Because in at least for the both of us, me and Fazil, we are starting this even smaller venture, which is a podcast, where there is a lot of I know in no sense can I ever compare a podcast to a startup, but at least to a smaller scale, we know how it is to delegate to somebody else and do things ourselves as well. How did it begin for you? Because I think personally, you wouldn't have begun right out of college. You must have begun during college as well, at least to get to paint a picture for yourself on what you're trying to sign up for, right? So yeah, just a bit about that.
Okay, makes sense. So basically, we started in 2017.
Okay.
and I graduated in 2019. So about a
Correct.
good towards end of 2017, all of 2018, beginning of 2019, a good 1.5, 2 years, we were dwelling on this idea about how to go about with it.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
from college,
like all,
during college it began, huh?
yeah, the whole ideation, the whole talking to people, the whole writing your business plan, sending it out for business fests, seeing what are people thinking about it, all of that started in college.
Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing what we did was that first thing I spoke to a lot of friends. That's the first
Mm-hmm.
thing I did. And I found that who are the people who actually believe in this idea and who are the people who have the courage to take that step out of college. So I
Okay.
got my co-founder from my friend group,
Mm-hmm.
and he stuck on with me for these 2 years.
Okay.
So that's the first person I connected with.
Mm-hmm.
Then I knew that we're gonna need manpower to do this. Both of
Correct.
us can't do everything completely. So
Right.
we floated a few advertisements. By advertisements, I mean WhatsApp messages. Spoke,
Mm-hmm.
went to different
Right.
classes, said that hey, we're starting this. Would any of you like to join us? So we
Mm-hmm.
got a good team of 10, 15 people that time. Everybody
Correct.
wants to work for free because they were attracted to the idea. And
Okay.
I knew deep down that these people won't be coming with me after I graduate, and that's completely fine. No, leverage the people who you have at hand right now, and they're all talented
Yeah.
people and they're all well-meaning people. So
Correct.
I felt that let's do that.
Mm-hmm.
We had out of those 10, 15 people, the people who actually work for around 5 or 7, always going to happen.
Correct.
So these 5 or 7 people really helped me start up. I did not know about psychometric evaluations, that whole career counseling aspect. So I had two
Correct.
friends helping me out from the psychology aspect. They helped me build my psychometric evaluations, taught me a lot about that. I had
Mm-hmm.
one friend who was in the content creation space. So
Mm-hmm.
she helped us understand, how it's like to make videos, how it's like to write, how it's like to shoot. So we understood that. I had another friend who helped me understand the business development aspect. So he
Okay.
actually set up our sales funnels, told us where all to go, how to actually get people, how to do that sales jugaad aspect. So we had all these 4, 5 people helping us out, handling different departments. They really helped us set up because by the time I was
Is
out
this
of college,
was this a daily thing? Like how many hours did you guys put
Yeah.
together per day, or was it
Because
like a weekend pay? Because you mentioned because you were in the college, it was like 2 years still for you to graduate, and you created a
it,
team within in that atmosphere itself. So how did
I
the
think
time help you, or the entire
it
college aspect
it's
of it as well?
it's keeping consistency and motivation because when you're
hmm,
saying all these things, it's a
Yeah,
lot of work. At
yeah,
least for the both of us, it's a lot. Yeah,
it
you're
feels
saying
like you
yeah.
need to have 48 hours in a day or something.
Ha.
no, that I
Yeah.
think is a bit of a misconception. I feel that
Okay.
looking back, I did put in those long hours. And even after I graduated, we used to work about 6 days a week, and the 7th day also I used to take meetings.
Okay.
But looking back, I feel that is one mistake we did. We should have thought more and acted less,
Okay.
and
Mm.
probably spent more money on hiring people instead of doing things on our own. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you how we handled it in college first, and then I'll tell you about a little bit about why I felt that this hustle culture of working 48 hours a day, or even spending 100 hours a week, is not correct. It actually doesn't help out anybody.
Okay.
So in terms of college, I had a pretty strict college, Christ University, and we had to be in campus from 8:30 to 3:30 every day. In fact, the learnings are such that I'm still wearing a shirt on a Saturday. I haven't forgot any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it was a bit strict. You had to come well groomed. You had to wear a shirt in the morning. You couldn't
So
sleep in class. You
a
couldn't.
school like atmosphere in a college kind of thing.
Precisely, precisely. So right over there, we lost those hours in the day, 6 to 7 hours in a day. We lost over there because we couldn't do anything in college.
Right.
And after that, also you have 1 or 2 assignments. So you had to be you got
You have
free
to
around
dedicate it.
5 o'clock, 5:36. You got full.
Huh.
Something that helped me a lot was that I always kept something that excited me. So I was a management fester in college. So I used to go for a lot of these case study competitions. So basically, I took up all the different case study competitions for entrepreneurship, where I had to build a product and pitch a product.
Correct.
So I put in line what I enjoy with my business. So that forced me. I have to come up with a business plan on Monday. So I have to stay up on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, cut my weekend to do that work. Next weekend we have another project. So I have to show work. I have to work throughout the week that I can actually put forward something next weekend. So
Mm-hmm.
that drove me. I always use external stimulus to motivate myself. I think it's a great hack. Everybody should try doing it. because at some time or the other, motivation is going to die out, and you need
Correct.
something external at times to get it through. And slowly, you'll build up your internal stimulus as well. Slowly,
Right.
you'll be able to build up how you are working long hours as well. So you will be cut off from it sometime or the other. So that
True, very
worked for
true.
me.
Yeah.
And so throughout the week, because we have a competition the next week, the team has to work hard. There is a deadline. There's a deadline that's working. So
Was
that's
this
what
was
the
this
team
the
really
same
needs to
team?
work.
Was this the same team that helped you in your main project that used
Main
to?
Yeah,
integration.
yeah.
Acha.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So we created sort of a feedback loop, right? We're going on Monday. We submitted a task. We haven't got selected. Why haven't we got selected? Maybe we haven't put enough work on the table. Okay, let's go back and develop a few more modules so that next time we can send 3 or 4 modules. Okay, we haven't got selected. Maybe our assumption is not correct. We got to rethink that. Let's rethink, create something else as well. Okay, maybe we need a little bit more clients. Let's go talk to 10 people, get customer reviews. So week after week, because we had a deadline, the coming Monday or Friday or Saturday, whenever the fest used to be, we used to go for 2-3 a month. We tried 2-3 a month. So IIM, Masterplan, IIT Bombay, Eureka. We tried all of these, and at the end, we actually got selected for Dayanand Sagar group of institutions. And
Okay.
these guys pre-incubated us after we graduated. So it worked out perfectly, right? And we had something
Right.
to show these people because we had worked that whole year. We got
Correct.
a lot of support in the beginning also from this institution. So I would recommend that if anybody's thinking of a business, execute and strategize side by side. And one great way to strategize is for going for these plans. And that drives your execution will also, because when you losing is a great motivation, I feel, right? Because I take it personally. मेरे को कैसे निकाल दे यार, मैं तो ये हूँ, I'm like this, how can I take me out? So I
Yeah.
hate losing, and I take it very personally. Like it's not like I'm going to shrug my shoulders saying, "हाँ चलता है." No, I really hate losing. So I felt that was a great motivation for me because it became competitive, and that's what drives me. I guess other people don't like that culture, but for me, that worked for me.
I think when you when you were mentioning external stimulus, because you hit the nail on that part. Yeah, I
Right.
think we wanted to advance. I want to advance a bit more on that aspect. Shortly in a while. But then external stimulus, I think me and Fazil can share a little bit light on that as well, because for us, external stimulus is basically the number of views that we get and the number of positive comments we get back from our well wishers. It's as simple as that.
I'll tell you something on a personal side. You mentioned about being optimistic, like ridiculously being optimistic. But there's gonna be a part of you from inside which tells you, "Ki, bro, actually, just chill out. Maybe this is not your thing." So, did you ever question yourself like that inside, and how did it affect your mental health? Maybe in that case, because it happens for
Yeah,
me
because
individually in our semesters. I am trying to be optimistic, but there's always going to be something that keeps questioning me from inside. So
because a part of you thinks you're delusional, right? You'll be like, are you delusional? Why are you thinking this much or something, right? Yeah,
yeah.
Fazil, good question. Yeah.
Okay, अच्छा ठीक है. This is part of the cycle. I'm in my low phase right now. So you take like a third person's perspective. You observe yourself from a third person's perspective. अच्छा अभी you're in your low phase. That cycle has come where you're on the downside. That was something real that really helped. Instead of thinking about I shouldn't have these feelings, instead of thinking about I shouldn't be thinking about this, I realized that thinking like this is completely normal. And one way to actually understand is by accepting it. So when you accept something like that, right? It's like when you have a stomach ache, right? You don't think that why am I getting a stomach ache, man? My body is faulty. Maybe I'm not doing something right. Maybe I'm worthless. You don't think like that, right? You say, "Acha, aaj aaye, kal chale jayega." What's the big deal? So
Correct.
that's
that
that's
really helped
probably the
me.
best. That's probably the best example you could try to
Best
sum it up in.
analogy.
Yeah. So you don't get depressed over a stomach ache, right? So when you're getting depressed over feeling low, you just think, that okay, today I'm feeling this. Next month, if I kill it, I'm out of this stage.
Right.
Okay.
I have
One thing.
I have a
Hi,
personal
yeah.
question. I have a personal question. A lot of people, you see it on social media, you talk to other people, they tell you, put 22 hours of work each day for the next 365 days and things will fall in the right place. And on the other side, there are a group of people who are successful now, and they'll be like, no, work smart, and you don't have to work hard. And maybe that will get things in right place for you. So what in what side do you like to fall into?
Yeah.
Like with your business or with your startup, do you think that working hard was the right way, working smart is the right way, or a combination of both and a perfect mix of both is the right way?
So I think I'll have to break it down, right? Because I think working hard is a label that is really ambiguous. Because what exactly is working hard, right? For an ops guy, it's making those 100 to 100 calls every day to get vendors onto your app. For a strategist, it's about taking correct decisions and the amount of work you do to take those correct decisions. And if you can take that correct decision in 2 hours, what does it need to put 16 more hours, probably crunching numbers that you've already done again? So I feel that you have to understand what is your role, right? Now, for example, if your business is sales oriented and you are the salesman of the team, right? You have to be out there making those 100 to 100 calls every day, come what may. You have to be going for your weekend events for networking. It goes without saying. But if you're somebody who's steering the ship, I feel that you need time to actually learn, because there's so many different things that you're not comfortable with. I didn't know anything about digital marketing. I didn't know anything about coding. So how am I to strategize without knowing this? So I need to take time to learn. Now I don't know if that comes into the 9 to 5. Yeah, I don't know if that comes into the 22 hours of pure hard work, or it comes into your side relaxed time. I'm not sure, but I feel that if you are sort of steering a ship, if you're leading a firm which is somewhat automated, which you have enough people to do different things, you have to be responsible of taking correct decisions. And you have to work hard towards making correct decisions. So that could be meeting people, that could be reading books, that could be just taking the evening off to, reflect tomorrow with a fresh mind. So I would say don't make it work. The 22 hours of work is not going to make sense. Having results and having a plan to go for those results, having a plan to go for those goals, that is what makes sense. So yeah, I think even you could even work 22 hours in a day and not make it big. In fact, I used to work a lot at Compass, and I felt that had I taken time off, had I taken more time off, had I gone back to the drawing board, basically quit the hustle in the middle and strategize a bit better, we would have been able to come out of few of our slumps. That is what I think.
Just one small thing. I think a couple of minutes back you were mentioning something on the lines of your startup got incubated in this institution that you mentioned, and one thing is like this June 2019 post your graduation to December 2019 was your product development phase, right? What I think I am personally curious about is your post to December 2019 till most recently until your startup. You guys have dispersed and you guys have moved your own way, to put it in a better way, is like this entire COVID situation, right? How did it what were the challenges that you guys had to face? Let's admit it, there's a lot of challenges that you guys had to face, right? One thing is, coming out of it was itself a big thing. When somebody, if you personally have told me already, if you already had told me that, we had to go through COVID to go, for this entire startup to sustain. When you mentioned 5% chances for sustaining after the first year, a bit more about that as well, about the sustenance during COVID situation, and what were the things that you guys had to change and adapt to the situation, right?
So, like during the entire COVID situation, did you ever anytime plan to go to a B2C platform, or how did it came to a decision where you thought, ki, this is the time we put brakes on, and maybe we start to get to the jobs, or decide this is an end. What made you think that, and what was the thought process that went behind?
So I'll have to highlight a little bit about how our business was post development. Where did we face struggles, and why did we finally quit? So to start with how our business was post development, because we had a lot of free trials going on with schools, we were able to get a contract. We will get one B2B contract, and we were able to get something known as a B2B2C contract. Basically, instead of the school giving us all the 400 kids, they let us advertise in that school, and whoever was interested could come for our product. So we got these 2 deals from schools, and we had a lot of work on our plate that time, right? We had to hire counselors, we had to set up internal systems. So I got the deal from I think in end of May. So all of May, June, July, August, September, October went into just servicing clients, because suddenly you're going from 0 to like 500, right? And its volume is insane. So you had to service all these clients, and my 4 to 5 months went into just servicing these clients.
Okay.
Problem started in October. So
Okay.
in October, I went and I was pitching to other schools because I felt that I need to get more business next year to sustain. So when I was
This
going to
is
other schools,
October of 2020, right? Just to
20,
make sure.
October
2020.
2020,
Okay.
October 2020. So when I was going to other schools to talk to them, I realized that schools are lacking profitability because A, COVID. Some schools are doing, some schools have lost, although they're charging full, some schools have lost revenue in terms of, canteen ka revenue and, something like, from shop revenue and
Yeah.
basically the other goods that are on facility, they lost revenue from that.
On campus
And
revenue. Yeah.
another,
Yeah.
precisely. And another reason why schools are struggling is that the government of India has launched a new policy wherein one-fourth of every school, basically one-fourth of every class in a school, has to belong to an economically weaker section. Students have to belong to an economically weaker section. And you can't charge money for them. So what's happened right now is that if you look at it, one-fourth of the customer base has eroded because you can't charge money from them. So automatically you are going to have profitability issues. And I spoke to 2 to 3 school owners and I realized not happening. We have to switch. We have to move from this business model.
Right.
We are probably going to lose our DAV deal also next year. That's what was going on in my mind. So that is when the struggle started because suddenly we had to move to B2C. Suddenly we had to hire a digital marketing team. I mean,
Okay.
I always thought of doing it, but now the threat was imminent. I had to do it or I risk losing business. So then we went to hiring digital marketing teams, working on your search engine optimization, working on your Google advertisement, setting up Google My Business, the typical digital marketing gin bang that you would do. We're having a lot more webinars, having a lot more events, trying our best to get that. But in B2C business, whoever is going to start a B2B business, remember you need capital to burn. You're going to be having a cost of acquisition and you're going to have to burn money. Your cost of acquisition and the amount of business you're going to be getting initially is going to be a lot lesser than the amount you're spending on getting customers in the first place. So it's a well-known factor. All the startups are doing it. Be it your Uber, be it Zomato, be it Paytm. Everybody has a cash burn. Everybody has a high CAC. So that is one thing that you have to be aware of. And we were a B2B business, so I felt that had I taken a month or two and probably revamp my business to a more B2C business, I would have done better instead of just taking my B2B business and dumping it into a B2C market.
Okay.
Right.
So I felt that that is one mistake I did, and because of that, we were having high customer acquisition. Because of that, we were making losses, and we were
Okay.
not getting funded because there were career councils in the market who were already funded. So
True.
I felt that we were unique in terms of the experiential learning aspect, but the career counseling market is well tapped. So we weren't able to raise funds. I have an option right now to spend another 2 years in developing a product or joining a fast-paced business and learning how to develop a product from them while getting paid for it.
Okay.
So the latter options seem more sensible than starting all over again on your own with nobody to teach you. So that's when I realized that okay, now I want to go for a job. But I was very adamant that I don't want to go for any job. I want to go for a job that actually teaches me how to run a business and how to develop a product or how to scale a product. So I looked at product management roles, I looked at strategy roles, I looked at new business initiative roles because I felt somewhere down the line, all the three of them would help me understand how to build a product better.
Right.
So that was my mindset. And that is why I decided to get back into corporate because I felt that let me learn from here and maybe try again after 1 or 2 years.
Right.
Okay.
So right now you're in the space where you're trying to learn and develop new skills, and then you probably will be coming back into the entrepreneurship world. Is that the takeaway?
100%. 100%. There's no doubt about it.
Cool. I think one of the when you mentioned, I think it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to admit that okay, we might screw up later on. Let's just pull up our socks and let's try to do some SWOT analysis, like they say. Like to understand what you're signing up with, right? I think it takes a lot of courage to admit that okay, this is not going to work well, especially with you hit the nail on those B2B B2C aspects. Like we don't have any idea of that, and then if you were able to like explain it in like crisp terms, it made sense that okay, we had a small picture of what it means to, sign up for an ed tech business right now, at least. And, especially those funding situations, it gets a little more, when you're trying to quantize a particular thing, that's where you understand, okay, this is getting real right now. Yeah, I just want to bring you back to this particular thought. I think let's just let's just let this be a clip or something. One thing was, when you mentioned exit opportunities, a bit more about that, about exit opportunities, like, the skills that you bring to the table to a particular firm. Could you share a bit more about that? Yeah.
Sure. So I think it's very important for whenever you're getting into your first job, whenever you're doing something right after college, keep in mind what are exit opportunities 2 years from now. Where can you go from here? So about starting my own company and what are the exit opportunities you have as an entrepreneur? I feel that you have a lot of exit opportunities in terms of joining high growth startups and B, more importantly, doing the kind of work you want to do. So just to tell you a little bit about my story, I've signed on right now with an Indonesian financial API platform, and they're a Series B funded company, and I'm working as a CXO's office staff. And just to be very honest with you guys, I don't think I would have got this role right after college, or I don't think I would have got this role if I had taken up the job I had in hand after college. The reason I got this job was solely because I worked for 2 years to build my own thing. They assume I have the understanding of how different departments work. They feel I'm comfortable, doing many things at one time. People start rooting for you a lot. And that is when return on karma comes in, right? Because so many people are rooted for me right now. And when I put up that post about me quitting Compass, I would say shutting down or, revamping myself as an entrepreneur. That's how I like to put it.
Yeah.
I got so much support. Like I had about 10, 20 people reaching out to me, just wishing me luck. I had 5, 6 of my friends giving me job offers the next day. Like, why don't you come to our firm and I'll give you an internal recommendation. The company I'm joining right now, the CEO saw my post and messaged me after that. And there were all roles exactly what I wanted, right? Strategy, new business initiatives, product. So suddenly I have revamped myself into somebody who deserves these jobs because I did put in those 2 years creating something that I can show to different people. So your exit opportunities are going to be immense when you start your own thing. It doesn't have to be just in tech. The reason people get high-paying jobs, the reason people do well in life is people take risks. People have the ability to take risks. People feel that, okay, whatever happens, I can take a risk. I can bet on myself. And you've already seen the downside. I've seen the downside. The downside is what? I got a lot of support and I got a job. So the downside is now suddenly the downside is not so bad. And because you've been through it once, and the upside is immense.
It was so important to highlight because I feel like if people, this is how people think. It's like if you fail at something, there's nothing to take from it, and you cannot leverage any of the skills that you put in, the effort that you put in for the past 2-3 years. But then you mentioned about the exit opportunities that you had, leaving from the startup, you had much better job opportunities than people who would just like to opt for a job
out of college.
Exactly. So that was important to highlight.
I think to close things on a high note, I just want to say thanks for really, just making some time for our podcast and making sure that I think I personally felt it was worth it to make sure that I just wanted to make this happen. At least invite you to our podcast and share those tidbits of things that we felt we totally needed to know. And thanks a lot for coming. I think if Fazil has something to share,
Right. No, I was very impressed with the, you mentioned a few minutes ago that you're taking a break now. You're going to learn new things and you're going to come back into the entrepreneurship world. I don't think anyone knows this, this is also possible. Something like this we can do, So I think that was very important to highlight. So thanks for that bit of information. So we haven't quit yet. We haven't quit yet. This is an interval and the second half is yet to come. It's like that. And once and once God willingly the business is successful, we'll have Sumerai back on the show talking about the successes this time and what went right rather than what went wrong. So thanks for coming. It was a beautiful joyride time that we had.